Mark Cuban. In our case, he delivered and then some. He remains an investor, minority investor at this point. He invested $20,000 on the show. Over time, I invested about $700,000 altogether. And what he would do is he would see they're making some traction and he'd give us $50,000 more, $75,000 more, $100,000 more. He said, I'll donate whatever you invest. I think at the time, 10, 20,000 was about all we could do. He said, I'll invest that. But the good news is that we almost every time could reference for other investors, Mark Cuban's investing this, so you should invest too. We could use his credibility and the fact that he
Yeah.
was going on to throw on more. So every dollar he gave was really worth $5.
And welcome to the Startup Innovators podcast, where we look at some of the hottest venture funded companies on earth. And man, we've got such a cool one today, a little bit different because everybody's heard of Shark Tank. And my guest, Felix Lloyd, today, his company, Zoobean, they early on landed a $250,000 investment from Mark Cuban himself
Yeah.
on Shark Tank. And now today, since then, Zoobean is helping motivate millions of kids to read. And as a former DC Teacher of the Year, I'm sure, Felix, that's really the dream of every teacher in a way, isn't it? To affect millions of young kids and help them either love to read, love to learn, and go on to do amazing things in their life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because when I got the Teacher of the Year award, I was 24, 25, which I'm not anymore. And I stumbled into teaching. So I didn't study, I didn't prepare to be a teacher. I was a film major undergrad, but I was also a mama's boy. So when I came back to Washington, D.C., there weren't a lot of film jobs. So I became a teacher sort of by happenstance. But I enjoyed it. And really, just 3 years in, I won that award. So I say that in part because I don't know that I had the appreciation for it then that I do now. Also, don't think I really deserved it as much then. But what I was I was young, I was energetic, I was a black man from the neighborhood teaching in the schools where I grew up, and I think all that, helped me stand out, but I learned a whole lot more teaching than I think I taught in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think you learn a lot more, even as an athlete. We were talking about this earlier. Once you become a coach, you start teaching the technique or the strategy of the game. Become a better athlete yourself. There's a lot to that. I think for you in particular, though, to win an award like that, I'm not sure the decisions were based, but it had to be because you were really great at your trade and the feedback that others were giving to whether it was a committee or whatever.
Yeah,
It had to be based on a job well done. You had to be very beloved, and I
yeah,
think the mission of your company makes total sense if you understand a little bit about who you and your wife are. So
mhm.
before we get going, let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Who Felix Lloyd is. I'm going to do a quick intro
okay.
for those that don't know you. All right. Felix Lloyd, you're the co-founder of Zoobean, the company behind Beanstack, a platform used by libraries, schools, and communities across the United States to inspire children to read and build lifelong literacy habits. You're also, as we just mentioned, a former Washington, D.C. Teacher of the Year, and you founded Zoobean alongside your wife, Jordan, who had previously served as head of K-12 education outreach at Google, and who also later earned an MBA from the prestigious Wharton School. The idea for Zoobean began when the two of you became parents and realized how difficult it was to find the right books for your own children, which led you to build a discovery platform that today recommends books and learning experiences that are tailored to each child's interests, reading level, and identity. As we shared before, we're going to come back to this just because it's really cool and it's really fun.
Thank you.
The whole Shark Tank experience. And I think anyone who listens to this wants to know from an
Yeah,
insider's perspective. They've probably never spoken to anybody on Shark Tank. And they want to know, what's really TV hype versus the reality of someone
yeah,
being a true investor and dealing with those investors long term. But since then, Zubin has raised more than around $5 million in venture capital from investors like Kapoor Capital, Riverside Acceleration Capital, Evoke Capital, Miliato Capital, and of course, friends of ours, Achieve Partners. And today, BeatStack powers reading programs for thousands of libraries and schools, helping children log in billions of minutes of reading worldwide. And I can't, as a dad for children, including a couple that have dyslexia and some reading disabilities,
mhm.
I can't imagine a more worthy cause and mission for a company.
Thank
So
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. That's an amazing bio and background. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks. Well, let's just jump into something that jumps out, which is so you and your wife Jordan were both educators in your own way before starting Zoobean. Um, and then that's a very different experience because when you're seeing the goals and the objectives being met because you're actually in whatever the setting is, like the classroom setting, you're getting that contact. It's unusual for people that are in those vocations to all of a sudden decide to become startup founders. It's a big jump. It's not normal.
Yeah.
What motivated the 2 of you to leave the success that you were both having
Hmm.
and jump into the open sea and try to start up your own company?
Yeah, it was a series of chapters that led there. It's interesting because the school where I worked was a first year school. I was one of the first four teachers. And my belief about teaching, partly informed by that particular experience, is that it's I don't know if it's entrepreneurial, but it's something very close. It's independent. So a lot of teachers, when you go into your classroom, it's your classroom and you're building things from the ground up without necessarily a manager right over your shoulder. There's a principal, there are other resources in the building. You're really, it's your domain, it's your small business in a way, perhaps. While teaching was not the path that led me directly to entrepreneurship, I think my being attracted to teaching or some of the things I learned as a classroom teacher led naturally to later becoming an entrepreneur. But the truth is, I worked so hard as a teacher for those first 7, 8 years. I needed a break. I took a break. Tim, I had long hair, I had dreadlocks. I was off in the woods writing a great.
Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a different time, no kids. Jordan was with me. She was dealing with me in my chapter. She was going through her own quarter life crisis at the time. And I went to write the great American novel. Then in doing that, I ended up in a MFA program for creative writing. So I ended up going to grad school for creative writing. And while I was in grad school for creative writing, there was a business plan competition at the business school. And I submitted a pitch for it because I knew coming out on the other side, I wouldn't have a job with this degree. So I said, well, let me do this business plan competition. And I won it. I got a $5,000 student award, and that became the official launch to entrepreneurship. I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Do you know that book?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've followed Robert Kawasaki for
Yes.
decades. Yeah.
Yes. But
Yeah.
when I read this book, I was 27, 28 when I read it, and I thought, I didn't know any of this. Like, I'm learning about money and not just money, but conceptually a way of thinking about wealth that I'd never heard me before. So, and I was 27, 28, and I was thinking, I'm working with these students, I'm teaching them all these wonderful things about the American government and US history, but I'm not teaching them this very practical skill around building wealth, and nobody taught me. So when I came up with the first business idea before the current work, it was all around taking what I was learning in Rich Dad Poor Dad and making a game that would appeal to the students that I was working with. So the path to entrepreneurship from teaching was a couple steps removed from the classroom, but at the same time, I think that the bedrock for it was laid from those years teaching.
Yeah. I think so often that even if you go to a great college and you go to business school, I mean, I went to a great one, Kellogg. Maybe today you're learning a little bit more about entrepreneurship, but the strategy for thinking about how you make money as a business person, they
Mhm,
don't teach a lot of that, right? You
mhm.
you can learn how to do a bond valuation, but you don't really learn the skills. So as Robert Kawasaki was teaching, is a home an asset? Some people think it's their biggest asset, but if it's not generating cash flow, it's not. And you start to think about, I need to do things where I'm not trading my time for money. And then you go back, you say, I spent all this money. Um, as actually Troy, who's one of your board members,
Yes, yes.
he had shared in a separate conversation with me, is that the colleges aren't necessarily educating people. What they're doing is they're structuring so that you can get credentialed. And there is importance to credentialing as a recruiter. If you have a degree from a certain school, it's like a bar that some people want to see. But overall, in general, people go to college to get the degree, think it's going to help them get a job, and they're not really learning the practical things that are
Mhm,
going to help make them successful,
mhm,
particularly if they go out on their own.
mhm.
It's no longer a company looking at it. So let's talk about Zuby for a minute. Like, what was the big problem that you saw that you wanted to fix, and
Yeah.
how are you guys tackling it?
Yeah, it's evolved. Well, in one sense, it's evolved, but it's always been the same thing. So the big problem from the beginning was about reading and the importance of reading and trying to help people read more. The original problem and idea was very much around our family being interracial, interfaith. My wife's
Mm,
Jewish, I'm not. And we had a daughter on the way and a 2-year-old son. And we were trying to find a big brother book to help him understand what it would be like to have this little sister. And the book we stumbled on was called All the World. It's a picture book by Marla Frazee and Liz Garten Scanlon. It pictures an interracial family, but it has nothing to do with that. Like you could change the character's race out. They make no mention of the race. It just so happens that the dad is black, the mom is white, and the kid's interracial. And my son pointed to the book and said, "That's me. That's baby sister." And it really resonated with us. So that's what got us on Shark Tank was the idea that look, we're interracial interfaith family. There are books out here that are hard to find because they're not labeled in these ways that today's many families are. So that's what we want to do. We want to send people books each month labeled, not just based on ethnicity, but based on the interests,
right.
the geography. That was the original idea, but it didn't work, honestly. We were on Shark Tank. It was a good story. Mark Cuban invested in the technology we had at the time. But when the night the Shark Tank show came on, everybody has these wonderful Shark Tank stories where it comes on the air and they make millions of dollars. Our episode came on the air and we made tens of dollars. And I'm telling you, Tim, we got
Well,
so
I know that you had new yeah, I know that a variety. If you just go to YouTube and Google, you're gonna you can't find the episode,
yeah, it's hard.
because of a rights issue, but you can
Yeah,
find a number of news shows that
yes,
covered you. Like, yeah, that's surprising.
yes.
Okay.
Well, here's what did happen. Shark Tank delivered. The moment we stepped on stage, like the traffic on our website went off the chain. And so we got lots of attention. We were on these local news shows, but nobody bought the product because the product was not compelling enough and the message market fit wasn't quite right. So what happened next is we went to public libraries. We had a sense that they might be interested in what we were doing because the people that were helping us choose the books were librarians. And they asked us, are we going to be at this public library conference? We said, sure, we'll go to that conference. And we got our first client ever, Sacramento Public Library, with the promise that instead of sending people books, we would just send them to the library to help them find the books that were already there that would help that family. That started getting us some sales, but nobody was using the product. We started realizing that they weren't using it because they were obsessed with summertime and summer reading. And summer reading was a season when they got their most use. It's their retail season, June 1st to Labor Day. Schools are closed, the weather's nice, families are often out and about using the library more, and they do these reading challenges to really get people excited about reading, but to get them to come into the library, borrow the material, visit. We said, well, how are you doing that? And they were often doing it with paper-based programs that were giving students game cards to fill out how many books they read. And there were a couple competitors in the space, but we saw an opportunity then to take what we were doing with recommendations and evolve at a level and help people track their reading, help the library engage more people, build a mobile app so they could reach more people, run these reading challenges during the summer, eventually all year long. And that's when I think we figured out what we're doing now, which is we weren't really helping libraries run reading programs. That was fundamentally the top level feature set. We were helping people get more excited about reading and doing it by using gamification principles. So leaderboards, competitions, streaks, virtual badges, and that application was very useful for public libraries because they needed people to come into the public library. But it was also very useful for schools because independent reading is a North Star for reading outcomes in general. Reading outcomes are learning outcomes. So that's been the
Mhm.
focus over time, but it really started with um, interracial interfaith family trying to find a good book for a kid. And then it
Wow.
evolved into gamification principles to help students read more and do better in state tests and in life.
That's amazing. I'm sure you've gotten so much feedback from families that are like, we knew we're gonna have to deal with this at some point, right? The questions that children ask about whatever it is in life that's a complex issue,
Yes.
and parents struggle. How am I gonna explain this in a way so, the person feels really comfortable and they understand it and it makes sense to them in their world because it's maybe different from what they're seeing. Um, I could probably think of 10 similar issues off the top of my head, and if you have something they can read to start getting it going is a great thing. So I can
Mhm.
see how you're reaching out to that. I think your story though, I would say, gosh, if I ask the question, maybe 75% of all the guests that I've had, on these podcasts, successful entrepreneurs, when they started the company, they had to pivot or morphed into something that was either different, but in the ecosystem, an eco network, let's say, or a complete 100% pivot from one industry to another with no connection. And I think as I've spoken over the years to so many investors, venture capital folks that do early stage investing, they'll tell you that you cannot necessarily bet on the business because particularly if it's a nascent business, it's not like you're disintermediating something. You're trying to get a change of behavior. You never really know where it's going to go. And so much of the investment they make is on the person that they're investing in, the CEO, the founder, that they will have the agility and the foresight and the ability to stay in the game when it gets rough and find a new path. And so that makes most of them successful. It sounds like you and Jordan are part of that traditional entrepreneurial story there.
Yeah, lots of pivot.
Uh,
Absolutely.
did we were talking a little earlier just to share the Shark Tank story a little bit. What was situations like Mark Cuban when he was on the show? When you're on the TV show, are they serious or are they playing a role and then laughing, but then the commercial breaks about it?
No, no. It's very serious. It's
Yeah,
the strangest thing. You get out there, and for the first 30 seconds, so you're out there, and they're only a few feet away. It looks longer on TV, but they're like right there.
and it's surreal. Isn't it
It's
surreal? Because
surreal.
you know these people.
Ah, Tim, you got to understand. I was the biggest Shark Tank fan. I've been watching every episode. I'm not. I can't say that I'm someone who believes in mystical and kismet things, but I always believed I'd be on that show. And here I was
Wow.
with my wife on the show, 10 feet away from Mark Cuban and Barbara Cork and all these famous folks I'd seen. And for the first 30 seconds, you can't say a word. And the reason is because they're getting all this canned footage really quickly. They got a dolly shot going around you, they got a crane, and then they say go. And once they say go, they don't stop you. And we were in there for 45 minutes to an hour, and they don't stop. Mark Cuban, Mr. Wonderful, they're all talking over each other, and they're very serious. Then it's over. And that's the best part of it is that been in a lot of pitches now, a lot of boardrooms, a lot of restaurants, a lot of wherever I had to pitch, but you don't know where it's going to lead. With that, you're going to get some no's, some yeses. It's going to be over. Now, there was a whole legal process after that, but you had clarity on who was going to invest. And for us, Mark Cuban was the only one left. He engaged us in a dialogue, made us an offer. We were excited to get out of there. But then it didn't come on for like 8, 9 months. And 8, 9 months
What?
later, yeah, it took,
Oh my god, you're kidding me.
and you only know,
I'm thinking within the next like month it's on the air.
well, maybe for some, because it was interesting when we got there, they had us all in a hotel with other contestants. But the moment you leave your set, they don't let you see any of the other contestants again. So we went to our own hotel we never saw. But there were some contestants that we had seen, and their shows came on in September, October, very early. Ours didn't come on to April. So they just mix and match them in a way you don't
Yeah.
know. And they tell you when you're out there that, hey, congratulations, you made it to Hollywood. We have invited 300 folks. And we have 24 shows this year with 4 episodes apiece. So you do the math. Even though you've been invited out here, your episode may never air. So don't be boring.
I
Yeah,
I had no idea. So even though you go through the process, they may never put it on the air. But you're on the cutting room floor, as they used to say in the movie business, right?
so
No way. I had no idea. No idea.
you're waiting till for April, and you only know 2 weeks. I used to refresh this page on TV Guide every week to know if our episode was coming up. And finally, 7 months later, it's coming up. It took us 6 months to close the deal with Mark Cuban, even though we did it on the air. It took 6 months.
Really?
It was so stressful at the time. I look back on it with rose-colored glasses now, but at the time, it was stressful because we just wanted it all to come together. It did. It did. Notwithstanding, we had to make the pivots to make the business work. But Mark delivered on his promise. The show delivered on his promise. But when it comes in the air, it's only 8 minutes. So you're in there for
Yeah.
40 minutes an hour, but it's a
Yeah.
whole different combination of events than what might have happened in
I
practice.
think a lot of us always wonder what type of involvement does the person on the show who's committing, or them or their team,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
kind of involvement they really have? Because sometimes when they're making the pitch, they start talking about, well, I have distribution here, and
Oh, yeah.
that's why you should go for me. But then you wonder, like, after it's all done, do they come through with it? Do they make one phone call and that's it? Like, what was that post Shark Tank experience with Mark Cuban or whomever's part of that show trying to help you out?
Yeah, no, he's been great. He was great from the beginning. It took those months to get it started with him, but once we got it started, he what I learned with him was that if I asked, he was quick to respond. It was him too, by the way. It is him. It's not. He's got a team of people that will collect our financials, occasionally reach out to us about PR. But when it came to the direct, strategic
Mhm.
operation advice, it was Mark Cuban, and he's quick to respond. I started learning to be careful what I asked of him because when he would give feedback or advice, he'd give it strong, and you think, well, I don't know if he knows enough about the realities on the ground to get
Yeah.
that insight. But no, he's been helpful. He very early on gave us access to his brand, so he would allow us to do reading challenges themed after Mark Cuban. He did a
What?
reading at Dallas Public Library. So in our case, he delivered and then some. And the most important thing about Mark that we're at a new stage now. He remains an investor, but he's a minority investor at this point. He kept investing. So he invested $250,000 on the show, but over time, I think he invested about 700,000 altogether. And what he would do is he would see that we were making some traction with this new pivot we made, and he'd give us $50,000 more, $75,000 more, $100,000 more. And he kept doing that to kind of push us ahead and to the point where we got enough traction with the new model to make it work. And that capital
Never enough to make you comfortable.
never enough to make us. I remember he would ask us, like, I one the way he did it once, Tim, I mean, and we had not a lot. He said, "I'll donate," he said, "I'll invest whatever you invest." I said, "Okay." So for us, I think at the time, 10, 20,000 was about all we could do, and that wasn't even comfortable. He said, "I'll invest that." Like, okay, wish I had 500,000. But the good news is that we almost every time, especially later when we got a little bit more momentum, could reference for other investors, Mark Cuban's investing this round. So you should invest too. We could use his credibility and the fact that he
Yeah.
was going on to throw on more. So every dollar he gave was really worth $5 or so.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally see that.
Yeah.
Why do you think he invested in you? Like, what is it that
Mhm.
what's the main thing that he saw where
Yeah.
he believed in either you personally or what you were doing? Like, what was the trigger where he said, I'm gonna everybody else is gonna do this, but I believe in this mission and this team of people.
Yeah. I get a lot of credit now. My wife's not in the business day to day, but she was a big part of what I think drew him in. The horse to jockey the race. He was like you said earlier. He was very much into the jockeys, the people. He said, "I don't know
Yeah.
if the product." He was clear even on the show. "I don't know if the product is right now." And obviously, we ended up in a market different than what we expected. But he believed in my wife because she had been at Google. She was at Google at the time, leading K to 12 education. I think he was intrigued by my experience as a classroom teacher, and I like to believe he liked the vibe he got from us, and he was betting on the people, and he could see that the problem was an interesting problem, whether it was specific, not the interracial interfaith family problem, but the problem around helping people better connect with reading,
Mhm.
especially in the world of devices. This was before the pandemic, but the pandemic had just accelerated some of these issues.
Yeah.
I think he understood they're doing stuff with reading that's important, that's increasingly important. They seem like good people who have relevant experience. I think that's what did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's jump a little bit to entrepreneurship since post Mark Cuban, you've pivoted, you've grown. He's been there as an ancillary investor,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then he went and raised money from a lot of other people that obviously validated the direction you guys were going. I know that doing a little research on you and reading some things and listening to some things, you've or not often, but you've made the comment before that starting a company isn't the rocket ship ride that
no,
you tend to see in the Silicon Valley, short clips.
yeah,
That it's really just a grind, as we would say in sports, a daily grind.
yeah,
What was that grind like for you guys as a startup company?
yeah. It's been the
I mean,
hardest
two
thing
people, married couple.
with two kids, two young kids, and this is their third, this is their brother, sister. Like my two kids have grown up with this about 16-year-old son, 13-year-old daughter. We've been doing this for about 11, 12 years. So they've grown
Wow.
up with this. I'd say it is the hardest thing we've done along with being parents, along with being in a marriage. Like being in, being married, having a great marriage is hard, and doing it while being coworkers, building something up is not just a grind. It's a test of strength. And I think
Yeah.
that, yeah, going through it has helped me be a better communicator. It's helped give me better life perspective over time. It's made me a better leader as we've started to add people to the mission and to the journey. But yeah, the best way I can describe it is long, long nights, and people say, you haven't heard the term long days, short years with kids. I think it's been long nights, long years. It feels like it's taking forever. Like, "Oh, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there." But, I'm so glad we've done it. It's been the experience of a lifetime.
Yeah, I think it's hard enough on a relationship, whether it's a wife, partner, or, parental type of relationship or a whole family,
Yeah,
when you have one person as the startup person, somebody else has like a job. That's still hard, right? Because one person's like gone. But when two people are both doing it together and then you have little kids, that's something very special. It's either going to destroy you
yeah,
or you're gonna come out of it stronger because you went through something together and you were committed to each other. The reason you started it, and again, you started this with the desire, as you said, to help your own family out. Then it grew into something a little bit larger,
mhm,
in terms of the greater mission and purpose. So I think it was just, I got a new productivity software, and we're 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 destroying our marriage over it. Probably would have worked out, but I think where you guys are, and the reason the mission was so important, and the origin back to you and your children probably is a big part of why you've been successful as a family in addition to a startup team.
yeah, thank you. I believe that's true. Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would not. It's been a journey, but it has made the marriage stronger and the communication stronger, and I think we have pride in having built this team together.
Do you know if when I listen to all these various podcast guests, guys like you that started these companies, the majority of them do not say, "Hey, you should jump into it. It's absolutely amazing." The majority say, "I don't recommend it." Isn't that the funniest thing? So there's that old question of whether entrepreneurs are made or are they born. I
Yeah.
don't really know, but I know that whether they're born or made, the process is equally tough for them, no matter what their mindset is. So, pretty interesting story. What are the metrics that you look at today at Zoobean with respect to user success around child literacy
Mhm,
that matter the most to you
mhm, mhm.
in terms of the mission? I don't
Yes.
mean like profitability and revenue growth. I'm talking about like in terms of the mission. What do you measure to let you know whether you're really being successful?
Yeah, we start off with just, our one critical number. We got that term from a book called Scaling Up.
Mhm.
Is microsite. So microsite is every time our product implemented. So we look every month at how many implementations of our site, of our product we've had. So how many schools, how many libraries are using it. The next thing we look at under that is, well, how many of them are actively using it? How many just
Yeah.
don't implement it? How many are using it? The next thing we look after that is, of those that are actively using it, how many have 25% participation, 50%, 75, 100%. We can see how many students in the building, how many people in the community, how many have different levels. And then
Mhm.
at the student level, the thing we're most looking at is frequency and stamina of reading. So how many days per month they're reading, how many minutes per day they're reading. And we want to drive that metric up. We want to see more people reading more frequently, and we believe that that's gonna, drive good outcomes overall.
So you're developing I guess, it's more than just I guess you call it retention strategy, but
Mhm,
you're constantly looking at deciding what do we have to do on the gamification side to
mhm,
get kids even more desirous to
mhm.
wanna use the service and have a great time and then be led down this path of learning while having fun, essentially.
That's right, that's right, and like, what I've come to appreciate is there's definitely a feature element to it, but there's also just great service and training, like, the whole ecosystem of what goes into it, selling the product the right way to the right person, so they're buying the right value proposition that we can deliver on, training and implementing them, and yes, and having a great feature set, then having great data that's proving value to get them to use it more. It's all the cycle that, I think in the beginning, you're just trying to build a super cool product, but it's a whole set of things that go around it to make it work.
What's like the big milestone that you guys need to hit next to take that hockey stick up a little bit further?
I think so. I haven't shared this. We're going to make a announcement next week, but we are officially becoming the Joyful Reading Company. So we're changing the name of the company
Wow.
from
Wow.
Zoobean to Joyful Reading Co. We've acquired another company that's a comics book company. It's called Comics Plus, and we are launching a new product that is called the Reading Motivation Index, and it's designed to help measure the ways in which people are motivated and the trends over time for each individual. So I think the next milestone for us looks like creating this ecosystem between those 3 products and a general focus on joyful reading and proving that there's a marketplace and an opportunity for it.
I, um, I love the name, to be honest,
Oh, thank
joyful reading, because that really is the goal, and I understand the history of zoo being. I think I saw your wife say once that, Bean was like the little child nickname for your daughter, I think, and that zoo was something that's always fun. I remember reading all the books about the what is it the book about the monkey that gets out and he
you.
goes to the zoo and
Curious
yeah,
George.
Curious George's trip to the zoo and all that fun stuff. But as you expand away from little kids, and now your kid is maybe you still call them Bean, but is
Yeah,
16 years old. Things are yeah, you're gonna get some backlash from the teenager, that teenage angst. Yeah, so it makes sense that the overall mission is teaching people to have a joyous, wonderful experience,
yes.
engaging in reading and learning. It does make a lot of sense.
Thank you, thank you. It is a greater passion. It is a greater mission.
Let me ask you a quick question. If you could go back
Mhm.
to the day today, to the day before you made your Shark Tank pitch,
Yeah,
knowing what you knew today as a startup entrepreneur, what would you have done differently for that show?
done differently. There are people choices along the way that I think I've come to appreciate that it depends on the moment in time. If I were there at the very beginning, I would, of course, end up in the product market fit sooner. I would have said, "Oh, you shouldn't be selling this to consumers. You should be selling this to libraries and schools." But I think that's obvious and easy, and I don't know that it would have worked out the same way had we started there from the beginning. We got it better by getting there incrementally. I
Yeah.
think I would have really focused in on the importance of people at every stage, relationships with investors, employees, partners, the importance of kindness, and never knowing who is going to come back around and how they're going to remember you made them feel and you made them believe. I think we've gotten that right, but not all the time. I've gotten better over time. I think I would tell myself that it's going to take some time. So just buckle up. Don't.
Now does that work when you're making a pivot? You call it, "Hey, Mr. Investor, well, how's it going? Tell me all the good news." "Well, it's gonna take some time, and we're gonna change it all together." When you do make these big pivots, you do have to talk to your boards, and
Yes.
that's gotta be an uncomfortable situation because you're kind of there's a recognition that, like, what we're doing, the vision we had,
Mhm.
isn't quite working the way we want it to, so we're gonna have to make a change to become successful. That
Right.
can't be necessarily easy.
No, no, but I think that goes to the people point. Like, I think if you've been clear and transparent,
Yeah.
then folks understand how you got there. And it's incremental. It's not all of a sudden a moment in time was like, oh, that's not working. This is working. There's a series of choices and decisions and hopefully forward momentum that never make it feel like one sudden pivot over one moment in time. It's all part of a process.
Yeah, yeah, and you're building the trust along the way, and you said if you're being transparent about it, then you're getting some feedback along the way, and it's not a surprise to the I think investors don't want the surprise.
Yeah. And inconsistency, I think one of the things that I've come to really most value transparency in terms of I've learned to lean in heavy to being transparent, to having hard conversations when they need to be had. And I think if you've been transparent and consistent with folks, then
Yeah,
they can appreciate when there's a change needed within the context of the story they've been hearing. Not when there's a change that's needed that's a completely new story that they haven't been told before, but when it's consistent with the transparent message you've delivered throughout.
yeah. Well, your company's almost the definition of, like, a vision or mission-driven company.
Mhm.
When will you know whether when will joyful reading, when will it have really hit its big goal and made the impact that you sought from the very beginning? When will that happen in terms of what will you see happen when you'll realize, wow, everything I wanted to see down the road, that beautiful out there thought, we actually did it.
Yeah, man, Tim, I like this question. I don't know. There's some things that happen every day uh, that are reminders. So I have a friend who's in Portland, Oregon, who earlier this week sent me a picture that was in an alley in Portland, Oregon, of our logo.
Mm,
Uh, I'm in Washington D.C. He grew up in D.C. with me, so just to one sense, seeing this logo in an alley in Portland was one compact. But that's not about people, and it's almost sort of a vain thing to it. I saw an image today of a school on, I think it was Instagram, where they had all these different teachers lined up at each school that had received distinguished awards for independent reading that had been
mhm.
associated with data they got from our product. So I think incrementally there's that. But more globally, like years ahead, I don't know, but one of my favorite sayings is just do what's next. Just do what's
Yeah,
next. Just do what's
yeah.
next. So I have confidence that just that there will be these moments in time. But another reality about me that's probably true of lots of entrepreneurs is every time I feel like, yeah, then all of a sudden I feel like, no, right after. So I don't know if it'll
Well
ever be
well,
like,
I think that's the adrenaline that drives the mentality of you
yeah,
usually you don't see an entrepreneur who starts a company, he's successful in like 7, 8, 9 years, and then goes and retires and is on the beach every day.
over again.
It's there's something that they're addicted to.
Yeah,
Maybe it's the idea of solving the problem, maybe it's the idea of, doing something that everybody says you can't do,
yeah,
or maybe it's just you wanna make that impact and you can't do it
yeah.
necessarily, without that critical mass, and starting a company is the way to do it. But I'll tell you one thing, authenticity,
Hmm.
is the absolute, key, I think, to trust.
Hmm.
Felix, from the minute, we popped on the screen together and from the time I talked to Troy, I can feel the passion, the kindness, coming from you and the sincerity of, I know, wanting to help people. And that's kind of the mission that I think started with you and your wife, just trying to help your family and trying to help others. And we really need entrepreneurs like you, where it's not just about building, the next big box that's powerful and impactful and productive, but really changing the future for people and the vision. When someone learns to read, and I've seen this personally, and they struggle and then they start to be able to do it and then they start to learn more and they do better in school, it changes their entire motivation to want to accelerate and do better in life. And so, of course, you never get to see all that, right? Maybe one day when it's all over and how all
Hmm.
the dots are connected, we'll see the impact we truly made. But I really appreciate you
Yeah.
and your wife
Thank you.
for enduring the challenges of startup founders in pursuit of a worthy goal. I think there's valor in that. And it's been awesome having you on.
Oh, Tim, thanks for the opportunity and I appreciate the kind words. Great being here.
Thank, thanks, Felix.
Thank you.
See you to the next one. Bye. The Startup Innovators podcast is provided by MatchStar Venture Search. If you are interested in any of our executive roles or need help sourcing world-class talent for your company, check out our website at matchstar.com.